What are your memories of with the Midnight Express, you and Tully? You started the angle with them, and then eventually you guys left.
Well, Bobby Eaton and I were like two brothers. We were as close as Rick and I were close. Bobby lived a rock's throw behind me, so we traveled together a lot on some of the driving shots. Rick would fly some of the longer ones. We would drive them. That was just the luxury of being world champion. So we traveled together a lot, and I think him and Dennis Condrey were probably the best team I ever saw, at that time. Purely manipulative, utilizing their manager. Cornette was right there. I mean, they were great. And they were classic matches. We didn't get to wrestle them, obviously, as long as we should have, because that was right about the time we left.
Now, like, I guess, how did your negotiations come about with Vince?
There were some incidents. Let's see. There were some incidents in the front office of where we're going to be sold to Turner. Are we not? Are we going bankrupt? Are we going belly up? I know that Jim Crockett was in a lot of financial duress. At that point in time, we were as hot as you could possibly be. We did the angle with the Midnight Express, and coming out of the Great American Bashes, all the advances were actually up. The matches were Luger and Flair, us against the Midnight Express. And we did the new Charlotte Coliseum, we did like 20,000 people, which is near capacity, which is huge. We couldn't get a straight answer from Jim Crockett. He had made us a promise, contract-wise. We had done a pay-per-view from Long Island earlier. He had made us a promise on a payoff that didn't come through. Basically, he was swerving us, and we knew there was a point in time that if we're going to make a change, that was the time to do it. I put out a feeler, and he said, absolutely. Something happened in Houston that wasn't to our liking as far as being just treatment on television. It had nothing to do with winning or losing or who we were wrestling, but there was just an incident that I'd rather not go into. I addressed it with Jim Crockett. He didn't handle it properly. So I went and picked up the phone and called Vince McMahon.
Was Rick shocked that you guys were leaving, or was he standing behind you guys?
He didn't believe it.
He didn't believe it?
Yep, he didn't believe it. I called Vince that night. He said, there'll be a first-class plane ticket sitting there for you in the morning. We flew to Stanford. He picked us up in the limo, took us to his house. We sat out by the pool, put the deal together, flew back to Philly that night, walked in and told Jim Crockett, this is our last night.
Right, and you lost the belts in Philly.
We lost the belts to the Midnight Express. Bobby Eaton beat me right in the middle with leg off the top, Alabama Jam, and we left. Rick didn't believe it. He believed, well, these guys are blowing off steam. The next afternoon, we had an afternoon show in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he called. We weren't there. Then it occurred to him. It was time for TV to start. We weren't there, and he cracked.
How did the rest of the boys react?
There's probably a lot that wanted to see us go. There was probably a lot that didn't. The guys that were confident in their position and their abilities, I'm sure, hated the fact that deal was over, because the Horsemen carried Jim Crockett Promotions, for a long time. Drew a lot of money, and I'm not saying we were the entire company. That's the farthest thing from the truth. The Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, Magnum, Nikita, Ivan Koloff. We had a huge array of talent. Dusty, obviously all these guys, the Garvins, everybody. But we were the consistently top 3 matches, every night for years. And to see that broken up wasn't good for the wrestling business. It certainly wasn't good for the company. And I'm sure the guys that wanted to move up the ladder were tickled to death.
Right.